With Florida State likely having an offensive coordinator change after the year, at least in my opinion, what should the Noles be looking for in their next offensive coordinator?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is something that is just coming to a head, so I'm getting out in front of it. Florida State is probably going to make many changes. If they don't, so be it. Then I have been proven wrong. And quite frankly, you'll see this guy right here that's on your screen if you're on YouTube or listening to him, wherever you may be, screaming because they didn't. So today I'm going to feature a couple of coordinators, but I want to give first an overview of 5 things among many that you have to look at when you're bringing in a coordinator to a program like Florida State. There are a lot of extenuating circumstances because let's not kid ourselves. If they're just hiring a coordinator, maybe multiple, that means Norvell is back. Why would they bring somebody back, expect them to make changes? Because who are you going to get? All those questions are valid. I will delve into those momentarily as well. But again, the focus here is offensive coordinator. After I give a few minutes of discussion, kind of going over some keys of things that Florida State or any other major college football program should do, those 5 will be listed, and then I'm going to delve into 2 more. So without further ado, and these aren't necessarily in any particular order, but these are 5 that I find critical. And every school has their own nuances, but these 5 are pretty much going to go to any major FBS program. Number 1 is style. What kind of offensive style do you have? What does your fan base prefer? What are they used to? What's available to you in the local market with recruiting? Is it going to be easy to recruit to that style? For instance, Wisconsin's not going to recruit the same way Florida State is. The state of Wisconsin is terrible for skilled players. The state of Florida is tremendous for it. There's different reasons for the style. That means you're a little more open-ended if you're Florida State, but you might have to travel a little more for O-linemen. Florida, even though a humongous state, is not necessarily elite with O-line. It's just okay. But the skill guys are forever. So that's something to think about. And it's why Florida State has adapted so much throughout its history, whether it's pro style, a combination of pro and spread. They've had teams that ran the football a lot more, didn't matter, played more power like with Jimbo and did more play action. Now they're more spread and RPO. Anything like that is fine with Florida State. So they're at an advantage. They have a wider girth for what they're going to be able to pull from and be successful with it, not only on the field, but making the people in the stands at Doak Campbell Stadium happy. That being stated, that's only one of the 5 that I've got here. Fit. This isn't just about on the field. This is more about off. When a coach moves to any school, Florida State or otherwise, they're more likely uprooting a family, kids changing schools, etc. Is Tallahassee going to be a place that it's okay, not just okay, but is going to make the missus happy? Is it going to make your son and or daughter happy? That is very, very important. That is something you got to evaluate early. The administrative staff, these search commissions, and all these different firms, all these little, shall we say, flies on the wall in meetings and different things. These coaches talk. That's what that means. How much information can Florida State get to get the right people? Because it's not just getting that coach that's good, because they'll be gone and out the door if they're not happy, but you convince them to come. Sometimes it's a better deal not to get a guy, because if they're here for a year, you need somebody usually for at least 3 to be happy. But I understand that football is very volatile with all the money too. So there's that as well. We'll talk about that momentarily. Experience. Florida State needs to hire somebody, especially after the ridiculousness of this year's offensive staff, that has a proven Power 4 offensive coordinator track record and or is really good with the passing game. Like Florida State fans talking about the fit that goes along with being at this program, the culture, being able to recruit, the style, all of those things. Florida State fans want to see the ball in the air more than most. Everybody likes the passing game more. It's more exciting. But the history of Florida State football, that's important. That's why somebody I'm going to talk about is the first coordinator today. Although he hasn't been an experienced coordinator for long, his passing game repertoire is elite. We'll get into that here in a minute too. Number 4, recruiting. Florida State staff has underwhelmed under Mike Norvell. Not at every spot, but the majority have not lived up to the expectation from a consistency standpoint. It's bad. That must change. Every single coach, I don't care which one it is that Norvell hires or somebody that's on the way out, I'm going to talk about recruiting. This is 80%, as I say constantly on this show. Recruiting is 80% of the reason that a team wins or loses on a Saturday. My players are better than yours. If you're not saying that, there's a problem. You win games before the ball is ever kicked off, far more often than you don't. This staff is not getting it done. The new guys coming in, that's got to change. Not good recruiters, proven elite guys. Somebody that when he walks in the room, okay, his repertoire for being a coach that's great with tight ends, great with offensive tackles. Maybe he's a quarterback. Whatever the offensive coordinator's main thing is, that's great. But he's somebody that's personable, likes to get after it on the recruiting trail, and accepts open-endedly. This is something else I say quite often, that your social life will suck and it probably will not make your wife happy because you're a really good recruiter. The best recruiters oftentimes have miserable marriages. It's just the way it is. If you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to be on the road all the time, that's fine. There's another school for you. Florida State is probably not it. It's a little easier at Florida State than some of the other schools in the South, but this is a 365-day-a-year job talking about recruiting. And yes, I literally mean during vacation. And I mean that 100%. Coaches aren't lying to their wives on vacation about recruiting. Again, they're failing. I have stories for days about that, but that's for another time. Finally, it's about money. This is the one that's just obvious. I left it for last because it's just kind of like, duh. If you're not spending a bunch of money, this is on the Florida State administration. If you're not willing to go close to $2 million for the coordinator, how serious are you about that person? Again, this needs to be a very experienced hire. Norvell is going to have a hard time getting somebody unless they're throwing out a bunch of money because he's on the hot seat. They may even have to throw out, besides the money, if that coach comes in and does great, maybe he gets a chance to be the interim head coach after Norvell's let go in 25. There's all kinds of nuances with this, but let's just use the basic term, money. How much money can Florida State afford with this? I have no idea. But my best guess is if they bring in somebody to replace Atkins, and again, I highly expect that, and they better, they're going to have to throw out some coin, because why would somebody come to Florida State? That's something I opened the show with. It's a valid question. I would ask that. If my buddy called me and said, what do you think about taking the OC job down there with Norvell at Tallahassee? I'd be like, are you nuts? He might get fired next year. He may not make it to the next season. You've got to make it worth their while. And again, this is more than just the cash flow. The insurance of being able to stay on, perhaps some kind of gig. If he doesn't retain you, maybe they help you. The package is bigger. They got to pay the full buyout for whatever it is. I know it's not favorable to Florida State, but they're not in a position of power. The money in this is going to be huge. I hope Florida State is ready for that, because if they're not, there's a pretty darn good chance that not only this search for the OC, but with quite a few others, it may not go the way that it needs to. So we're going to talk about the actual coaches. Got two of them I want to profile today. That is next on Locked On Seminoles. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows you to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. This show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the ball game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. There are a lot of coaches that are really good, and then there are coaches that have a reputation nationally, and anytime they walk into a high school practice to recruit somebody or the TV pans to them, you just kind of know who they are. One of them is the next guy that I'm going to feature, and this is a lot of fun. I'm not sure that there's anybody that gets more respect than this guy right here. Brian Hartline. He is the offense coordinator / co-coordinator now with Chip Kelly there in Columbus. He has a tie to the state of Florida. He played 7 years for the Dolphins. He recruits Florida like crazy. He has several players from Florida. 3 of his top 4 receivers right now are actually guys that played their prep football in the Sunshine State. So I think that it's pretty safe to say that he's an easy guy to utilize as a featured person. There are pros and cons with Brian as the potential coach for the Noles, but I have several things that I like about him that I'll get into personally. But first, let's go into hard numbers. I love comparisons. Here's number one. Looking at 23 when he was the guy. He was not calling the plays because Ryan Day still was, but he was the OC. This gets complex. Here are the numbers compared to 24 now that he's the co-OC with Kelly running the offense for the Buckeyes. They've changed quarterbacks. Obviously, the quarterback now for Ohio State was at K-State last year. The one they had last year is at Syracuse. So there are some differences. Rushing. They had 138.9 yards per game last year. That's 88th. So Brian threw the ball probably a little more than he should have. 2024 with Kelly, 186.5. They're 34th. That's up 45.4 yards. Better minds think alike. Something to think about right there. Passing game, 269.1 last year. That's 31st. This year, 271.1. Even though they've run the ball more. They're more balanced, but they're better with the efficiency. Having Kelly around is probably helping him. They're up 2 yards from last year, and they're up 45 yards rushing from last year. Total, 407.9 last year, 48th. This year, 457.6. That's 14th. They're up 47.7. Scoring, 30.5 last year, 45th. It's not really an Ohio State offense, but again, that was like his first year trying to do it, and it wasn't all him because he wasn't calling the plays. But this year, they're at 15th, 37.8. That's pretty good. Passing plays of 20 or more yards. I knew he was going to be good at this. Brian played receiver 7 years with the Dolphins, 1 year with the Cleveland Browns. He had 14 NFL career touchdowns. He understands the passing game. He may be the best developer as a receiving coach in the country. He's certainly in the conversation. This year, they have 31 through their first 9. Last year, throughout the entire season, playoffs and everything, they had 56, which is 12th. This year, they're only 38. But here's the caveat. 20-yard runs, they only had 12 last year. They were 96. So they really tried to throw it last year. This year, they have 11 already, which is 61st. But you've played fewer games, and they're still hitting on bigger run plays. So more balance. Red zone, this is where it's also very interesting. Last year, they converted 64% of their red zone attempts into touchdowns, 32 out of 50. This year, they're number 1 in the nation. Last year, they were 47th. This year, 89.3%. It's ridiculous. 25 out of 28. Again, that's first in the country. Finally, third downs, pretty similar, 43.4. It's 33rd last year. This season, 44.7 is also 33rd. So that didn't really change. but they're more explosive in the run game and much better inside the red zone. I do want to denote last year's quarterback more pro style. This year, run pass guy. He doesn't run a ton, but it's good to know that he could at least adapt to either. He's been around both. He's seen it for a long time at Ohio State. He's been there since 2017. He's been around it when he was a player. He graduated Ohio State 2009. I think this is a guy that if you're going to take a chance on somebody without much experience, because of Hartline's background as a recruiter, one, and two, and this is huge, you have to consider one other major factor. He's been in Florida. He knows what it's like to recruit in South Florida. When Bowden was rolling, they used to take kids right underneath Miami's nose. That's what he's done as well. Hartline's done that from taking kids from Miami, Jeremiah Smith in particular, Cardell Tate, Brandon Ennis. Those are the four guys that are key for them. I mean, they're really, really good at getting those guys from IMG, Chaminade Madonna, you know what, American Heritage, the programs at Florida State, and everybody recruits. Ohio State's getting them. And Hartline is often the lead recruiter on those guys since they're like a sophomore in high school. If that's the case, you need to be ready to at least consider him. I know he's not as experienced as I would like, but then again, maybe he wouldn't be interested anyway. I don't know. But it's just like I said in the prior segment, you have to be ready to go after guys and look at it from a holistic standpoint. The money, the fit, the type of offense. I think all of those things would work with Hartline. Would he want to leave Ohio State? I doubt it. They'd have to give him like insane incentive to come to a ship that is a little iffy, but he's not going to move up at Ohio State either. It's very unlikely. Chip Kelly is there. So that's why I put this in. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't. If Chip was not at Ohio State, for two reasons. One, he's gotten better as a coordinator because of Chip being around. Chip Kelly's a phenomenal play caller. And two, how much upward mobility is there at Ohio State? I'm going to guess that being the head coach at Ohio State is Hartline's career job, like the one he would love to have. Ryan Day's, although some of their fans would probably like to get rid of him, he's probably not going anywhere, and Chip Kelly is there. I'm not saying it's Florida State, but do not be surprised if Hartline is in another position next year or another year because somebody's going to come on and just offer him too much money. It's coming. That's my opinion. When we come back next, I'm going to talk about one other offensive coordinator that, quite frankly, isn't somebody you would have necessarily thought, but he actually has major ties to Florida, and he's actually even coached right here in the Sunshine State. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the job. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively looking for a job might be open to a job with your company if you are giving them the perfect opportunity. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're probably looking on the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate in 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. With this final part of today's show, this is a person that some people probably either really like or really hate. He's a long tenured coach. He's in his 60s, polar opposite of Brian Hartline. And that's why I did this. This person is somebody that was the head coach at one point of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you've guessed correctly, that answer would be Dirk Koetter. Why would you bring up him? Well, not only has he been the head coach in Tampa, he was also the OC in Jacksonville. He's lived in Florida in two different places. He's recruited nationally because he's been in Arizona State. He's been in other schools, been like Oregon, etc. He knows what recruiting is. But at this stage of his career, although he's probably not going to be a great recruiter in his 60s, He can at least walk into any high school in the state. The coaches are probably going to know it. Is it as perfect as Hartline on the recruiting trail? No. But the offense is very balanced. He is currently the offensive coordinator at Boise State. Have you heard of a certain running back they got out there? Kind of really good, might be at the Heisman ceremony. Genty's really good. Like, I was watching some of his film today. I tweeted it from my X handle about this guy is just legit. He's in Dirk Koetter's system. They have found a way to get him the ball in any possible formation, down and distance, place on the gridiron. Didn't matter. Last year, they used him more as a receiver than they are this year. But both seasons, he's been their bell cow. He's very well coached fundamentally. Just that alone makes me feel good because historically, and I remember my buddy telling me this over 20 years ago, he didn't like Koetter when he was at Arizona State because he thought he threw it too much. It's ironic that the nation's probably best running back is at Boise State now, a place that's the same state that Koetter's from originally, and he's a running back under Koetter. So he's come around in different ways. The other thing about it, the quarterback that they had transferred in, everybody thought was going to be the starter, he got beat out. He was a 4 or 5 star, depending on who you talk to coming out of high school. He gets beat out by a kid that nobody knows much about, and his name is Maddox Madsen. He's a 5'10", 200-pound kid from the state of Utah, I believe. I mean, to be really honest with you, it's amazing what he's done. He's like 17-3 touchdowns to interceptions. But here's what I really like. This is how you know coaching is good. This is really good. 3rd down in medium, 3rd and 4, 5, or 6. You make your money on those throws. 3rd and long is hard. There's a lot of ways playing the sticks with zone, etc. makes it hard. 3rd and medium isn't easy, but you still got to be accurate. How about this on 3rd and medium for Maddox Madsen? This season, 11 out of 14, 78.6%, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He has 9 first downs out of those 14 situations. He's very, very consistent. Doesn't give the ball away. He gets them in the right running plays so that Genty's dominating again. Again, this guy's going to be at the Heisman ceremony. The quarterback is living off play action, RPO, and again, Genty carries the water for them. I don't deny that, but Koetter understands it too. And this is a guy that's been a passing coach for much of his career, and he's cool with handing it off and letting this little quarterback just carve people up. Hats off to Boise. It's a great story. Koetter's in the midst of it. My biggest question with him is, does he even want to mess with being a head coach again? That's why I think it wouldn't be shocking if he went back across the country. If he's going to do anything in major college football again, who knows, maybe Florida State could be there. And like I mentioned with Brian Hartline, you're looking at a circumstance where if you're going to get Koetter, again, he's going to pick up and move everybody across the country, you'd have to give him special incentive. I'm not saying this is likely by any means, but he does have ties to the state for multiple programs he's been with in the NFL. He knows the state. Maybe he'd like to come back, and it is big-time football. Maybe he does so well, Norvell moves on, but he takes over the job. Who knows? Coaches look at this at a different light than what fans and what analysts like myself do. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I do know this. Koetter has been a tremendous offensive coordinator for Boise. You got to give the man credit. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Take care, and I will see you again very, very soon.